The night was quiet, but not peaceful. A toxic storm raged outside, turning the desert sky yellow and red. Winds howled through the broken canyons, pushing clouds of ash and metal dust. No one should be walking in that weather. No one should even be alive outside, inside a small metal house. A human named Jace sat by the heater. He lived alone on the edge of a forgotten planet, far from Earth. He liked it that way, no wars. No politics, just peace and soil. He was once a soldier, but now he only wanted silence. Then it happened. A knock, soft, weak but real. He froze, spoon halfway to his mouth. It came again, slow and careful, as if someone was scared to be heard. Jace grabbed his old plasma rifle from under the table. He walked slowly to the door, eyes narrow, his motion. Sensor didn't beep. That meant the person was either half dead or not human. He opened the door, just a crack, and saw her. A tall alien woman stood there, her cloak torn and soaked in red dust. Her eyes were bright blue, glowing slightly. She held a small child in her arms, barely older than 4. The child looked half human, half something else. Please, the woman said, her voice shaking. I escaped him. I need shelter. Jace didn't move at first. He scanned the area behind her, saw nothing. The storm was getting worse. Lightning flashed in the sky. Who's him? He asked, voice cold. The woman trembled, pulling the child closer. My husband. He's looking for us, but not for me. For her. She looked down at the child, who was too tired to cry. Jace looked into her eyes. He had seen fear before. This wasn't fake. He stepped aside. Get in, he said, quickly. She entered without a word, holding her daughter close. Jace closed the door behind them and locked it tight. Dust slammed against the metal walls, but they were safe inside. He handed her a towel and poured some water into a tin cup. She sat down slowly, still shaking. The child leaned against her, silent, watching everything. You got a name? Jace asked, still holding his rifle. She nodded. My name is Lyra. This is Vila. Why come here? I didn't know where else to go, she said. Humans don't ask too many questions. That made Jace smirk a little. She wasn't wrong. For a moment, no one spoke, just the sound of the storm outside. Then Jace asked, Is she your daughter? Lyra looked up, eyes full of pain. Yes, but she's different. Different how? She was built, Lyra said softly. Not born. Jace's hands tightened on his cup. Built? My husband is a high general of the Drellic Syndicate, she said. He used my body and human DNA he stole from Earth Labs. She's a hybrid, made to connect machines with minds. Jace stood slowly. You're telling me this child is a living computer? No, Lyra whispered. She's much more. She can control things we can't even understand. She's dangerous? She's scared, Lyra replied. And he wants to use her like a tool, Jace looked at the small girl again. Vila was playing with a metal spoon. Staring at her reflection, she didn't look like a threat. She looked like a tired child. He sighed and walked to the control panel. He increased the shield around his home and blocked outgoing scans. I can hide you for a while, he said. But if your husband comes here, he won't stop, Lyra said, voice shaking. He doesn't care who dies. Jace looked at her one last time. He had lived alone for years. He didn't want trouble. But something deep inside whispered. These two needed him, and maybe, just maybe, he needed them too. Outside, the storm screamed louder, but inside, something had begun. Not just shelter, not just safety, a choice, a war, a new family. And Jace had already stepped in. Jace woke up early the next morning. The storm had passed, but red dust still floated in the air like smoke. He stepped into the main room and saw Lyra and her daughter still sleeping on the floor near the heater. They looked peaceful, but Jace knew peace never lasted long on this planet. He made some hot liquid in a metal pot and sat at the table. His old dog, Rex, came over and rested his head on Jace's knee. Jace rubbed the dog's ears and whispered, We got company, buddy. Lyra opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the sunlight coming through the window. She sat up carefully so she wouldn't wake the child. "Thank you," she said softly, "for letting us in." Jace nodded. "You said he's hunting you?" he asked. "How far behind do you think?" "He is?" "I don't know," Lyra said. "But when I left the base, I took a jammer to block my trail. It might not last long." She looked at her daughter. "She's been quiet since we left." Jace looked over. The child was awake now, just sitting, staring at the wall. "What's wrong with her?" he asked. Lyra frowned. "She hears machines, sometimes even when they're turned off." "That doesn't make sense. She's not normal," Lyra said. "She was made to link her mind with systems control them like breathing." Jace sat back in his chair, thinking. "You said your husband is a general." "Yes, of the Drellic Core Fleet." "And he wants her back?" "Yes, not because she's his daughter, but because she's powerful." Lyra stood and walked to the window. "She's not a weapon," she said, "but to them, that's all she is." Jace didn't speak. He had seen people used like tools before, back during the border wars. That's why he left the military. Now it was happening again, but with a child, suddenly. The power flickered. Lights dimmed for a second, then came back. Jace stood up. "That's not normal," he said, walking to the panel. He checked the generator. Nothing was wrong. Vela, the little girl, was now standing near the control screen. Her hand was resting on the glass. The screen glowed softly under her fingers. "Vela, stop," Lyra said, running over. But the girl didn't move. She was in some kind of trance. The screen changed. Lines of code appeared, faster than any human could type. Systems activated one by one: defense drones, sensor grids, shield enhancers. "She's controlling everything," Jay said in shock. Lyra gently lifted her daughter's hand away from the screen. The glow stopped. The systems calmed. Vela blinked and looked confused. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It talked to me." "What talked to you?" Jace asked. "The machine," she said. "It was lonely." Jace looked at Lyra. "That girl isn't just smart. She's beyond anything I've ever seen." Lyra nodded, her voice heavy. "She's why they'll burn this planet to get her back." Jace walked back to the table and sat down. He felt the weight of what was coming. This wasn't just about helping a woman and her daughter. This was a war coming to his door. Rex growled suddenly. Jace looked at the monitor. A small light blinked motion, detected at the edge of the valley. "Someone's here," he said, jumping up. He grabbed his rifle and ran outside. Lyra stayed close to her daughter, heart pounding. At the edge of the ridge, Jace looked through binoculars. A small drone was flying low, scanning the ground. It was Drellic made, dark and sharp, like a flying knife. "They've found something," Jace said, breathing hard. He shot it down with one clean shot, but he knew the signal had already been sent. "They'll come soon," Lyra said, her eyes wide with fear. Jace didn't argue. He walked to his old storage room and opened a locked trunk. Inside were weapons from his past: plasma rifles, mines, and armor. He hadn't touched them in years. But now he had no choice. He turned to Lyra. "If they come here, I won't run." She looked at him, surprised. "Why?" Jace looked at the little girl, now asleep again. "Because I won't let anyone use a child as a weapon." Outside, clouds were forming again. But this time, it wasn't just a storm. It was the beginning of something darker, and Jace had already made his choice. The air felt heavier that morning. Jace stood outside with his dog, Rex, staring at the sky. It looked normal, blue and dusty, but something felt wrong. Even Rex was restless, growling softly as he sniffed the wind. Inside, Lyra checked the jammer she had brought from the Drellic base. The lights on the device were blinking fast. It meant someone was searching nearby. "They're close," she whispered. Jace came in and looked at the device. "How close?" "Hours, maybe less," Lyra said. "They'll come quietly, they always do." Vela sat on the floor, hugging a small blanket. She didn't speak, but her eyes were focused. She could feel something too, something strange in the air. Jace started preparing the house. He placed motion mines around the back entrance and activated his old sensor net. The defenses would buy time, not stop an army. But if it was just a scout team, they had a chance. He opened a metal box and pulled out an old badge, worn and dusty. Jace Halden, Earth Recon Unit, it read. He hadn't used that name in years. Were you a soldier? Lyra asked as she watched him strap on armor. Long time ago, he replied. Now I'm just a farmer with good aim. Lyra gave a sad smile. Maybe that's exactly what we need. Hours passed, the sun moved slowly, then it happened. Motion sensor beeped. Jace looked at the screen, 3 figures, moving fast and low. They were coming from the west ridge, using cover to avoid detection. They're here, he said, loading his rifle. Lyra held Vila close, whispering calming words. Jace moved to the front window and took position. Through the scope, he saw them. 3 Drellic scouts, tall and armored, with glowing red visors. Each carried a stun lance and pulse pistol. They didn't look like they were here to talk. Jace waited, breathing slow. When the first scout stepped on the marked path, the mine exploded. It didn't kill him, but it knocked him down hard. The other 2 ducked for cover. Returning fire blindly, Jace fired once, twice, both shots perfect. One scout fell with a hole through his chest plate. The second was hit in the leg and dropped his weapon. Crawling away, the third stood back up, wounded but angry. He shouted something in Drellic language. Jace didn't care what he said. He shot again, and the scout dropped. The silence returned. Only smoke and dust floated through the valley now. Jace checked the bodies to make sure they were dead. He returned to the house. They were scouts, he said, which means more are coming. Lyra looked down, afraid. They won't stop, Jace. They'll send hunters, then soldiers, then his elite guard. Good, Jace said, checking his ammo. Let them come. Vila stood up and walked to the control screen again. Her hand glowed faintly as she touched it. The system opened like it knew her. She activated the satellite net and showed a map of the region. Look, she said, pointing. Small blinking dots appeared on the screen. Ships entering the upper atmosphere. 5 of them, fast and quiet. They're here already, Jace whispered. He looked at Lyra. We can't stay here. But where will we go? There's an old underground bunker 20 miles east, abandoned during the last human outpost pullback. Can we reach it? Lyra asked. By night, yes, Jace said. But we'll need to move fast and stay low. That evening, as the sun dropped behind the hills, they packed quickly. Jace brought his rifle, 1 medkit, and a few emergency rations. Lyra carried Vila, who looked tired but alert. Jace activated a fake heat signature device inside the house. It would fool trackers for a short while, enough to give them a head start. They stepped out into the quiet night. The wind had calmed, but the danger had not. Every step they took felt watched. Rex led the way, ears high, nose to the ground. He was trained long ago for missions like this. Now the old dog was doing it one last time. Jace looked at the stars above. One of them moved. No, not a star, a drone. He pulled Lyra and Vila into a ditch, covering them with a heat blanket. The drone passed overhead, scanning the area. Then it moved on. They waited a few more minutes before continuing. The path was dangerous, the night full of shadows. But Jace knew something now. He wasn't just protecting a mother and child. He was protecting a future the galaxy wasn't ready for. And if they wanted the girl back, they'd have to go through him first. The night air was cold as they moved through the rocky path. Jace led the way, his rifle in hand, his eyes scanning every shadow. Lyra followed close behind, carrying Vila in her arms. Rex, the old dog, stayed ahead, stopping now and then to sniff and listen. They had walked for hours, and the stars above were starting to fade. The sky was turning gray, the first light of dawn rising slowly. Vela was still silent, her head resting on her mother's shoulder, but her eyes were open, watching everything. We're close, Jace said, pointing at a tall hill with sharp rocks. Behind that hill is the entrance to the bunker. Are you sure it's safe? Lyra asked, her voice tired. No, Jace answered, but it's better than being out here. They climbed the rocky slope, careful not to make noise. At the top, Jace paused and looked down. A flat metal hatch was half buried in the dirt below. He smiled. It's still here. He ran down and cleared the dust, pressing a code on the old keypad. For a second, nothing happened. Then a loud click echoed, and the door slid open with a rusty groan. Jace looked inside. Darkness, stairs, and old air. Stay close, he said, turning on his wrist light. They moved down the stairs carefully, each step creaking under their feet. At the bottom was a metal hallway, long and silent. The walls were lined with old earth symbols, faded. From age, this place hasn't been touched in years, Jay said. Are you sure it's safe? Lyra asked again, holding Vila tightly. Safer than being out there, he replied. Trust me. They reached the main chamber, a large round room with dusty consoles and broken screens. Jace placed his gear down and checked the power unit. It was low, but not dead. He pulled a cord and connected it to a backup battery from his pack. The lights blinked, then slowly turned on. A soft hum filled the air. It still works, he said with a small smile. Lyra sat on the floor with Vila. Exhausted, she looked around and whispered, "This place. It feels strange." Vila stood up slowly and walked toward a black console in the corner. Her fingers moved across the dust, and the console lit up. Symbols flashed across the screen, Earth military code mixed with something else. She's doing it again, Jay said, watching. Lyra stood, worry on her face. Vela, she called. Be careful. But the child didn't answer. She placed her hand on the screen, and the lights in the room grew brighter. A hidden panel opened on the far wall, revealing another door. Jace blinked in surprise. I didn't know that was there. No one did, Lyra said softly. She's waking something up. They walked to the new door, which opened with a soft hiss. Inside was a long chamber, filled with large machines and tanks of strange glowing liquid. On the walls were screens showing maps, codes, and deep space signals. This wasn't just a bunker, Jace said. This was a hidden research station. Vila stood in front of a control panel, her eyes glowing faintly. She touched the screen, and a deep voice came from the speakers. Welcome, Unit 7 Alpha, the voice said. Mind link confirmed, awaiting command, Lyra gasped. She was registered here? Looks like they planned for this, Jace said. Someone on Earth built this place for her kind. The screen showed a symbol, Earth's old flag mixed with alien design. Underneath it read, Project Harmony, Human Drellic Hybrid Development. They made her here, Lyra said, her voice breaking. They planned everything. Jace looked around, trying to understand. Maybe your husband wasn't the only one. Maybe Earth was involved too. Suddenly, the alarm beeped. The screen flashed red, showing dots moving on the surface. Drellic approached 5 ships. They found us, Jace said, grabbing his rifle. Lyra pulled Vila back from the console. We have to hide, she said, panic rising. No, Jace said firmly. We don't run anymore. He ran back into the main room and activated the defense systems. Turrets popped out of the floor. Barriers rose around the entrance. The old base was waking up because of the child. Vela stood beside her mother, looking calm. They're scared, she said. Who? Lyra asked. The ones coming. They know I'm here. Jace checked the cameras. 5 dark shapes moved to the dust outside. He took a deep breath and said, Let them come. Inside the forgotten bunker, an old war machine had been reborn, and standing in its heart was a human, an alien widow, and a child that could change the galaxy. The wind outside the bunker was picking up again. Dust swirled through the air as 5 dark shapes moved across the rocks. The Drellic strike team had arrived, tall, armored, and armed with heavy weapons. They moved like hunters, silent and fast, inside the bunker. Jace stood by the main door, watching the screen. He could see their heat signals getting closer. He had only minutes before they reached the entrance. Lyra sat with Vila in the control room. Her heart was beating fast, but she held her daughter close. "It's going to be okay," she whispered. But even she didn't know if that was true. Jace activated the outer turrets. They were old, but still powerful. With a few clicks, set traps across the rocks, motion mines, flash grenades, and heat bombs. He looked at Rex, his old dog, and gave a nod. "Stay with them," he said. "Watch the girl." Rex barked once and ran back into the control room. Jace turned and faced the entrance. He placed his hand on the steel wall, whispering to himself, "You wanted peace, Jace. But now it's time to fight." Suddenly the first turret fired. A loud boom echoed through the valley. One of the Drellic soldiers was hit, thrown backward in a flash of fire. The others spread out, firing back with plasma rifles. They moved fast, using the rocks for cover. But Jace had planned for this. He waited until two soldiers stepped into the minefield. A sudden explosion lit the ground, throwing dust and bodies into the air. Jace took aim and fired his rifle, hitting another soldier in the chest. Only two were left. They circled the hill, looking for another way in. Jace ran to the back tunnel, checking the sensors. One of them had found the rear vent. He rushed to the back entrance and placed an energy shield over the hatch. As the Drellic soldier tried to crawl through, the shield burned his armor. He screamed, falling back, and Jace ended it with one clean shot. Now there was only one, but this one was different. Taller, faster, and smarter, the leader. He stood just outside the main door, silent, scanning the area. He didn't move like a soldier, he moved like a ghost. Jace watched him from the screen, feeling cold. Inside the control room, Vila stood up suddenly. "Something's wrong," she said, her voice calm. Lyra turned to her. "What is it, sweetie?" "He's here," she whispered. "The one my mind can't read." Before Lyra could ask more, the lights flickered. Then a loud bang came from the door. The Drellic leader had found the entrance. Jace stood ready, rifle aimed, but then the door opened, not from outside, but from inside. The system had been hacked. "He's inside the bunker," Jace shouted, running toward the hallway. He saw the figure walking through the smoke, armor glowing faint blue. His face was covered by a black helmet with red eyes. The leader raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the wall lights turned red. The control room had changed. Vila stood at the center, her hands glowing. The machines around her responded to her thoughts. She looked different, stronger, focused, not a scared child, but something more. The Drellic leader paused. He looked at her through the doorway. He spoke for the first time. "Return with me, child. You are not safe here." Vila shook her head slowly. "I am not yours," she said. "I am not a tool." He raised his weapon to fire, but before he could pull the trigger, the entire room shifted. The lights flashed, the ground shook, and the machines roared to life. Vila's voice echoed through the bunker. "You hurt my mother," she said. "You hunted me." Suddenly, the floor panels rose, forming a barrier between the intruder and the control room. Turrets aimed at the Drellic leader from all sides. Electric walls activated behind him, blocking escape. Jace watched from the side, stunned. Vila didn't touch a single button. She did everything with her mind. The leader fired once at the shield. It bounced back. He turned, trying to find a way out, but there was none. Vila looked at Jace. "Should I stop him?" she asked quietly. Jace walked forward, placed a hand on her shoulder. "No," he said. "Let him see what he made." Vila's glow dimmed, and the machines calmed. She turned off the turrets, but kept the shield up. The Drellic leader was trapped, but alive. Jace walked to the comms panel and sent a message. "To Earth Command," he said. "Target captured. Hybrid secure." He looked at Vila and Lyra. "Send help," he added, "and hurry." Outside, the rising sun touched the hills. The bunker stood strong, hidden but alive. Inside it was a new kind of power. A child no longer afraid. The bunker was quiet again. Jace stood by the control panel, watching the red dot on the screen. It showed the Drellic leader still trapped in the shielded chamber. He hadn't moved for hours, just sat there, waiting. Vila sat near her mother, playing with some old metal parts. She looked like a normal child again. But Jace knew better now. Lyra sat beside her, eyes tired but calm. She had seen her daughter defend them. Without fear, without hate, Jace pressed a button and played the message he sent to Earth. The signal had reached the edge of human space. Now they had to wait. Suddenly the screen blinked. A voice came through, crackly and low. "This is Earth Command," the voice said. "Signal received, preparing response." Jace leaned forward. "This is Jace Halden, requesting extraction team and command clearance." "Confirmed," the voice replied. "Support ship inbound." "ETA 4 hours." Jace turned to Lyra. "They're coming," he said. "Finally. Do you trust them?" She asked quietly. Jace paused for a moment, then nodded. "I trust some of them." The hours passed slowly. Jace walked the bunker halls, checking doors, repairing systems. The place was still full of secrets. He found a locked room behind the reactor core. It took him 10 minutes to bypass the system. Inside were data drives, old Earth tech, and a strange chair with wires and lights. He called Lyra. When she saw the chair, her face turned pale. "That's a neural seat," she said. "They used it to program hybrids." Jace stared at the wires. "Earth built this?" "Yes," she said. "And Drellic helped. It was all part of the deal." Jace shook his head. "So Vela was never just an accident?" "No," Lyra whispered. "She was planned." Back in the main room, Vela stared at the door where the Drellic leader was trapped. She stood and walked slowly toward it. Rex followed her, tail low. She stopped at the glass. Looking at the man behind it, he stood and faced her, removing his helmet. His face was sharp and cold. Silver scars ran down his cheek. "You're stronger than I expected," he said. Vela didn't answer. "You were made to follow me," he continued. "To serve the new empire. I follow no one." She said, "You will," he replied. "When they use the chair again. When they rewrite your mind." Vela turned away. "No, they won't," she said. "Because I choose who I am." Just then, the alarm beeped. A message flashed across the screen. "Incoming ship detected." Jace rushed to the controls. A large human vessel was entering orbit. It was old but powerful, painted with Earth's deep navy colors, the U.S. Valor. A ship from the last border war. It landed in the open field above the bunker. A ramp lowered, and 5 soldiers stepped out. Their armor was clean, their weapons ready. Jace met them outside, his rifle lowered. The commander stepped forward, removing his helmet. A woman with sharp eyes and gray hair. "Halden," she said. "You look older. You look meaner," Jace replied. The soldiers entered the bunker quickly, scanning every room. They found the Drellic leader and secured him in a stasis pod. But the commander wasn't here for him. She knelt beside Vela, looking her over carefully. "You did this?" she asked. Vela nodded. The woman smiled. Impressive. Lyra stood beside her daughter, hand tight on her shoulder. "What do you want with her?" she asked. The commander stood. "She's valuable," she said. "To Earth, to the galaxy. She's a child," Lyra snapped. "She's more than that," the commander said. "She can end wars or start them." Jay stepped between them. "She's not going anywhere without her mother." "And if we say she is?" the commander asked. Jace raised his rifle slowly. "Then we've got a problem." For a long moment, no one moved. Then the commander raised her hand. "Stand down," she told her soldiers. She looked at Vela again. "You'll stay under protection, here on this planet, for now." Jace lowered his weapon. Lyra let out a slow breath. Vela smiled, just a little later. As the ship lifted off with the prisoner, the bunker returned to silence. But things were different now. Jace, Lyra, and Vela stood at the edge of the hill. The sky was clear, the stars above glowing bright. "What now?" Lyra asked. "We live," Jace said. "One day at a time. And if they come back, we'll be ready," he said, smiling. Because in the quiet of a lost world, a family had been born, and the girl the galaxy feared most had chosen to stay free. Weeks passed quietly. The sky above the rocky valley was calm now. No warships, no drones, no soldiers, only wind, dust, and the soft light of twin moons. Jace worked outside the bunker, fixing a solar fence around the area. Rex stayed close, tail wagging slowly as he sniffed the ground. The old dog had earned his rest, but he still watched over them like a guard. Inside the bunker, Lyra was cooking something warm. The old heating unit still worked, and she had found dried vegetables and grain in the storage. It wasn't fancy, but it was food. Vila sat near the control screen, not to use it but to draw. She had found a piece of chalk and was sketching shapes on the floor. Stars, ships, her mother, and even Jace, the child who once felt like a weapon. Now smiled more often. She laughed, played with Rex, and sometimes sang to herself in a language no one understood. But peace never stayed forever. That evening, while Jace sat with Lyra under the sky, the comm unit inside the bunker beeped. Jace stood up fast, his heart beating harder. Lyra followed him in. On the screen was a message from Earth Command. It read, "New threat detected. Drellic fleet movement toward border sectors. Possible retrieval mission." Jace sighed. "They're coming back." Lyra looked down. "They won't stop until they have her." Vila walked in quietly, holding her chalk. "They're scared," she said softly. "Of what?" Jace asked. "Of what I might become." She replied, "But I'm not angry anymore." Jace looked at her carefully. "You still want to stay here?" Vela nodded. "This is home." That night, Jace worked on the defense grid again. He wasn't preparing for war, just protecting his home. He had fought enough battles, but he knew the galaxy was watching. The Drellic feared what they had made, and Earth wanted to control it. The next morning, something strange happened. A message came not from Earth, but from a private channel. A small alien ship landed gently near the bunker unarmed. Silver and silent, out of it stepped an alien woman. Tall and calm, dressed in silver robes. She raised her hands to show she carried no weapon. Jace stepped out with his rifle but didn't aim. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am a scholar," she said. "From the Council of the Deep Stars." Lyra came out, surprised. "The Council? You're neutral." "Yes," the woman said. "And we heard the girl awakened the old systems." Vila stepped outside. Hiding behind Jace, the alien woman smiled. "You don't have to hide, child. We are not here to take you." Jace narrowed his eyes. "Then why are you here?" "To offer a future," she said. "One not ruled by Earth or Drellic, but one she chooses." They invited the family aboard the small ship. Only for a meeting, they said, only to talk inside the ship. Vila sat in a round room filled with light. Holograms of stars floated above them. The alien woman showed her images of peaceful cities, learning centers, and other hybrid children. Children like her. They live free, the woman said, but hidden. Lyra held her daughter's hand. "You don't have to go," she whispered. "I know," Vila said, smiling. "But I want to see." Jace looked at the stars through the window. He had spent his life running from war, but now he saw something better: hope. The ship stayed for one day, then it left again, leaving behind a small device, a communication crystal. So Vila could speak to the others if she wanted, so she could learn, ask questions, or even visit them someday. Back on the ground, life continued. Jace rebuilt a greenhouse. Lyra began teaching Vila how to cook and farm, and Vila? She kept drawing. Each picture had stars, but also people, a home, a dog, and smiles. She didn't need to be a weapon. She didn't need to rule machines or destroy armies. She just needed love, and she had found it. The galaxy would remember that name Vela. Some would fear it. Some would want to control it. But those who truly understood would know she was never theirs to command. She belonged to herself, and the small family who chose her, not because she was powerful, but because she was loved, and that more than anything, was the most human thing of all.